Man, you need to buy yourself a gun.
What?
A gun?
What?
Like a handgun, for personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you.
What?
What if your government tries to throw you in a can?
What?
You're gonna want a shotgun.
Oh.
What? One automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo.
Gun?
Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Check for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. UCY.TV. This is. My name is Michael.
Hey, and I'm Dan. How you doing, Michael?
Not too bad, Dan. What's up?
Oh, been hot around here, but at least been able to shoot a little bit, practice a little bit. We got a special guest tonight. You want to announce him?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy right now. We have Nick, my brother's on tonight, live and imported. Come on, Nick.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hey, you're doing great, Nick. How you doing over there in Korea?
I am in the last days of my tour over here. It's a great feeling.
I'll bet. You got, what, a week left?
About that. I'll be flying out on the Freedom Bird, going back to the land of civilization and leaving the land of the not quite right.
Oh, okay. So what's the weather like over there anyway?
Today we've got hazy, overcast conditions. The fog set in early this morning and burned off, and now it's just going to be humid and probably reach up to about 85 this afternoon, and you don't want to be outside in that kind of weather.
Yeah, it sounds close to Tennessee weather right there. How about you, Michael?
We are pretty much warm and humid as well, running into the high 80s and low 90s, and fairly warm and sticky. And thank God for the breeze.
So at least you guys have a breeze.
Yeah, that's our saving grace right here. If not, I'd run for the drier climes of the desert. I'm glad
Michael,
you're coming home, man.
Did you make a trade this week, Michael? Weren't you telling me about a trade or something you were thinking about making? Or
yeah, there was a trade I was considering, and it was an older Smith & Wesson 686, and I was considering trading it for a Beretta Nano and some cash, and the Nano would have been brand new, and the Beretta Nano is a subcompact 9mm pistol with one in the magazine. It holds 7 or 9. It's got a 6-round magazine or an 8-round magazine. The 8-round magazine's got a little bit bigger grip on it. At 9 or at the 6-round magazine, it's fairly small. And yeah, I'm considering doing that, Dan. I'm really looking at doing that.
so this Nano is a pocket pistol? Is that what you're telling me?
It's very small. It's a little bit bigger than a pocket pistol. I'd say the Sig 938 is smaller than it, but it's pretty small. It's very smooth. It has no safeties. It's almost like a Glock without the the Glock takedown lever. You know.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's got a fairly fancy. It's got a fairly fancy opening technique. You push a pin in the back to actually to release the striker without having to like pull a trigger, and then there's a screw on there, and you can turn it with the rim of a bullet, and it pops apart.
Huh.
And when you put it back together, you turn that screw back, and it goes right back together. So it's actually fairly interesting design. I think it's a little bit tall for a pocket pistol.
Oh, okay, so, but it only holds 6 or 7 rounds, is that what you're saying?
There's a 6-round magazine, which is flush to the bottom of the grip, and then there's an 8-round magazine that protrudes a little bit.
That extended finger or whatever gives
it
another
gives
round.
you another finger. Yeah, it gives you another finger hold on there, and I kind of liked it with the 6-round magazine. Some interesting reports about that pistol came out early, and as it's designed for a personal defense weapon, it's not a target pistol by any means.
It's a 9mm caliber, is that correct?
That's right. There's a 9mm and there's a 40 caliber. And I believe it was designed for the 40 caliber bullet, but they made it for the 9mm. And in making it for 9mm, they figured that people would use it for defensive carry, and they would actually shoot what they carried with it. So it doesn't necessarily run the best with 115 grain ammo.
Oh, okay.
It does like a heavier bullet. So, but that's not surprising considering a lot of the pocket pistols run better with a heavier bullet.
Yeah, the ones we like, those little North American arms, they'll shoot about anything, you know that. So that's one thing I like about those little pistols.
Well, you've got an interesting story about those North American arms pistols.
Incredible. There's a company called Tallow Distributors, and they have companies make exclusive firearms for them. And they had North American Arms make some of those mini 22s and engraved them, like 500, limited them to 500. One of them sold last week for $1,600, and this gun was produced just a couple of years ago. It was one of 500. And it's hard to believe someone would pay $1,600 for one of those little mouse guns. But they did. You saw the link. You saw the.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That gun sold for $400 new.
Tops, $400.
At the very top. If you went to the high end local gun store in your area and bought it from him, you paid $400 for it.
Yeah, that was out the door. That's taxed and everything.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, that's pretty neat. Yeah. Well, they are some fairly artistically engraved weapons. I mean, and some of them have like extra kits, like poker cards and chips that are unique to that. I still think that the little tiny one in 22 mag, it's got the 1 1/8 barrel. 22 long rifle with the 1 1/8 barrel is plenty for me. That 22 mag, it just jumps out of my hand.
Yeah, that's
it likes to jump out of my hand with stingers. Yeah, that's the one I like.
All right, let's switch subjects for a minute here. I want to talk about with Nick about some hunting calibers and stuff, because he's the one that knows all about that. You're going to go hunting, I assume, when you get back, Nick. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've got a good buddy of mine. Shout out to Chris. He's listening right now, and we're going to go out into an area, his part of Texas, that has basically they're an exotic species called axis deer.
Axis?
So axis deer. We're going to go out there and see if they feel like showing up.
Well, describe this deer for me. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so an axis deer is basically a imported exotic species that originates out of India, and it's known for its high tines, and they normally don't branch more than 3 to a side. But it's a significant antler formation, and it's different than the whitetail, whereas the whitetail deer's antlers come out to the front. The axis deer, they'll actually raise high. So you get some pretty interesting formations, and the pattern on the hide, it's very interesting. A lot of white spotting, brown coat with white undertones. It's a real animal worthy of a good trophy.
Interesting. I bet it is. And are they about the same size as a whitetail, or?
You know what? I have never seen one in person other than at the zoo, and in Europe where I was at, they don't have white-tailed deer except for in the Czech Republic and in Finland. So I couldn't tell you. I think they're probably similar to a southern whitetail, probably not as big as the larger-bodied northern whitetails out of Minnesota or Michigan or Wisconsin or something like that.
Now, what are you going to be hunting this axis deer with?
Well, I'm gonna bring out 2 rifles, and one of them that I will be shooting is the Blaser R8, and that will be chambered in 8mm Mauser. And then for a backup, I will also bring out probably the Browning X-Bolt that I have, and that's chambered in 30-06.
2 very powerful rounds that should do the job.
Yeah, these are
will definitely taken.
Yeah, these are tried and true rounds, both over 100 years old in terms of the caliber. And we're going to end up, just like everything Chris and I do, we're going to end up making a bet on something, I'm sure, and it will probably involve alcohol and possibly somebody's anal virginity if he's not careful.
Well, that's a serious bet there.
Well, that helps you make sure that you put your money where your mouth is, and it's not just something that you can take lightly, and we don't for hunting. Hunting is one of the things that we share a passion about, and I think that's one of the things that help draw us close together out here. And when you go out there, it's just a treat to even go out there and be out there with somebody you're good friends with, and obviously to take advantage of a real unique situation that they're being generous enough to include you on, because Lord knows he didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it, and I thank him every day. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Have you ever shot at each other's watches? Put them at 100 yards and taking a crack shot at them?
Out here, Dan, we can't even get to go to the range, but maybe once or twice in the year that we're here.
Oh, okay. That was a crazy little range game we used to play.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you'd be in less trouble doing something bad with another boy out here than you would be doing something with a firearm.
That is amazing.
Yeah, this place is Nancy Pelosi's wet dream.
Well, now the border is her wet dream. All these opportunities.
Well, they're just Americans who haven't been documented.
That have more benefits than you or I ever get, probably. Who knows?
Well, I know when I grow up, I want to be a Mexican or a Central American because they seem to get all kinds of benefits.
And, that reminds me, Michael, we were talking about that 22 mag ammo, the shortage of it, and how hard it is to find.
Yeah.
I figured out where it went. The Israelis like that stuff. They like to shoot the kids in Gaza Strip and this stuff.
That's interesting because that seems to be where all the Ruger 1022 and the Magnum Research 1022 Magnum copies that they made. That seems to be where they ended up as well.
Yeah, but all of a sudden the price went out of sight on those 22 Magnums, didn't it?
Yeah. If you find it for less than $20 a box, it's almost a steal.
And that's crazy.
It does show up in the store, but
Well, while we're into it, we'll talk about the other 22 ammo. It's the availability of it's out there. It's just people are still trying to take advantage of people. buying it at the big box stores as quick as it comes in, and then trying to listen it online for 200 to 300% profit.
Well, I have noticed that it is hitting the big box store again, but it's once again Walmart and Academy have both put limits back on the 22. Actually, Academy never lifted theirs. Walmart did, and
I got a question
Walmart
for
put
you.
it back on.
I got a question for you,
Sure.
Michael or Dan. Maybe even if Cracker was out there, he'd have a better take on it. But what's the value in doing your hand load 22s? Seeing if you can't hardly get with any regularity the 22 long rifle in the big box stores.
You can't reload a 22 long rifle.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Or even you can't create it yourself. You can't just get the primed brass and then just get it out.
You'd still be waiting on the company that's actually producing, the actual prime brass for their own ammunition.
I didn't even realize you could make 22 long rifle ammunition.
I've never actually heard of anybody doing it myself. I've heard of people taking spent 22 cases and recycling them into other uses. But
yeah, that was just a thought. I would figure that that at some point you could buy the primed rim cartridge and just add your gunpowder and then add your bullet choice and go from there.
Well, really, there's not a whole lot of manufacturers that make the prime 22 or rimfire ammunition.
Right.
Really, there's CCI, Remington, and Winchester make it in the United States, and then pretty much everybody else who has it is basically importing it from somewhere else and calling it their own.
Changing the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's corporate rebranding. It happens in everything. It happens in cars. I mean, everybody knows that the Geo Tracker was really a Suzuki sidekick,
Yeah, it sure does. Just like everything GM and Chevy do.
Yeah, I mean, it was the corporate rebranding happens in everything. So, but right now I see the imported ammo being almost under assault. I mean, the president said that he's going to work outside of Congress and issue executive orders. Well, it's well within his power to stop the importation of ammo. He can't ban the manufacture of ammo in the United States, but he can stop the importation of all ammo and weaponry.
He doesn't even have to go on a limb himself and do that. That's what he's got the State Department.
Yeah, he can have the Secretary of the Treasury do it, right?
Well, State Department were the ones that went out there and said that they were banning the importation of the 5.45 because it was a armor-piercing round or armor-capable.
So this is the same State Department that ran Fast and Furious? Is that the one we're talking about?
Well, the Department of Justice ran Fast and Furious.
Oh, okay.
But this is the same State Department, you're correct, this is the same State Department that prohibited the re-importation or the return of those M1 Garands from South Korea, who have no need for those M1s, and we can certainly use a bunch.
Okay, the same. This is the same State.
That was to stop the gangbangers.
Yeah, because how many gangbangers know how to keep their thumb out of the action on an M1? It's kind of hard to do that when you turn it sideways.
Ghetto aiming.
Yeah, we're gangbanging in Syria, homie.
I can actually get stuff ghetto aiming.
Yeah, I tell you what.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just I tell you what. If you can get anybody to go out there and commit a crime with an M1 that probably could handle it and do it effectively, the guy would probably be close to 85 years old.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he would probably be a veteran.
World War II vet. Or Korean.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. They issued these guys M1 carbines and M1 Garands. How'd they determine who got what? Did the little guys get the carbines and the big guys get the Garands?
No, actually, a lot of times had to do with what your specialty was. So if you were in a line infantry unit or a regular infantry unit that wasn't air mobile, whether it be parachutes or by helicopters, you normally got issued a full-length Garand. If you were in a armored vehicle, or if you were a paratrooper, or you were going anywhere by helicopter, normally they gave those guys the carbines.
The carbines gave them the smaller weapons.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And a tank.
It's practical, and when you're in the confines of an armored vehicle, you can't wield a full-size Garand.
You know how much an M1 carbine original folder World War II gun sells for? I mean, remember what make it was? $2,600.
Wow, and I don't think CMP is selling those anymore.
No, I don't think they are. I haven't been on that side.
No, CMP is pretty much dry. I think you can get put on the waiting list for 410 ammo and for some 22 trainers that are not vintage. I believe they're Mossberg trainers, and they're really not at any sort of discount. And other than that, you might be able to find something that's made from non-matching numbers and stuff, but it's not like it used to be. There's no ammo deals. There's no 22 crates. There's nothing like that anymore. You can get put on the waiting list for
CMP's website. They've got that they are out and their inventory has been exhausted from carbines, and then Garands they're way down on what's available. They've got things that are real decent in terms of like Harrington and Richardson as service grade, and then they've got the national match type.
How much is a national match grade?
Okay, national match grade for them is going $2,500 plus $29.95 shipping and handling.
Wow!
But the good thing about that, it is to your door, and there's no FFL charge.
Well, that's the deal maker then.
That's it. You do not have to go down to the gun store and sign over.
That's pretty wild. And that, that's an interesting program there too, because that's a program to arm the citizens when in the times like we're living in right now, they're trying to disarm us.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Well, the efforts are all over the place.
Yeah, I think that they've got some Harrington and Richardson that are service grade. They're going to have, good to very good quality. $625. That's the cheapest, I think, from CMP. You're going to find something, and then it's going to take you up to 6 months for delivery.
And at the same time, now there's what's that website you were telling me about, Nick? Classic Firearms, is that correct?
Yeah, Classic Firearms. They did for a while. They were doing a bang up job, man. I'm guessing that they've exhausted their stock of ARs, but they were selling ARs for anywhere between $479, and then they raised their price last March or April, and then they were still selling them between $550 and $525.
So that's terribly inexpensive for an AR-15.
Right, and they were using
that's not the price on the used market for the AR-15, not by any means.
No, not at all.
The price on the used market is $850 and up, and usually $850 to about $1,400. That's what people want for their used AR-15.
I can't get over these low prices, Michael. It's hurt the price of Colts and everything else now. So, but those other evil black type rifles on that Classic Firearms site.
Every Colt is now a $2,500 or $2,000 gun. No box, no nothing. Different grips, whatever it is on it. It's $2,000 at a minimum. So every Python that is that way.
We should just go ahead and make the AR-15 the gun of the week. We have a specialist with us on the AR-15 or M4, I would guess. Nick, tell us again about your immediate action drill that you go through on your M4 there. That's pretty interesting.
Not a problem. So every now and again, an M4 will have a failure to fire, and you need to go ahead and get that weapon system back in operation as quick as possible. And the way that we do that is by performing steps called immediate action. And these are just a series of steps that reduce that failure and get that weapon system back in operation in the shortest amount of time. And it also allows you to basically troubleshoot the weapon and figure out what's going wrong before it'll fire. So what we do is we break it down to the acronym, just said in the previous time we talked about it, and we call immediate action sports. And each one of those letters in that acronym stands for a step in the procedure of clearing that failure and getting that weapon system back up and running. So the first one we start off with is S. So what we do is we slap up on the magazine. We make sure that the magazine is properly seated in the magazine well and that it's not loose and getting ready to fall out. After that, you have P. And P stands for pull back on the charging handle. And what that does is it will remove any round that's in the chamber, and it should open up the action to where you can go right into the next step, which is observe. And you want to observe that chamber to make sure that you don't have a double feed or any other malfunction that's preventing the loading of the next round. R would be release the charging handle, and that should rack the next round out of the magazine into the action. T is tap the forward assist, and that will seat the bullet properly in the feed ramp and get that round ready to fire. And then S, squeeze the trigger and send that round downrange.
Very interesting. Now you also like to build AR-15s, correct, Nick?
I've got one that is in a delayed state of build. Haven't been over here and can't do anything with it. But yeah, I've got one that's on the rack, waiting to have its barrel attached. And the only pieces that I need left to install would be a gas block and the gas tube. So probably not too expensive to finish up, but once I get it all put together and get it in the vise, make sure everything's torqued down correctly, I'll still want to go ahead and get a headspace gauge, make sure that the bullet seats properly and that it's not going to have a failure in terms of any kind of blowback or any kind of malfunction.
Blow up on you. Make sure you blow up.
Yeah, I think that in today's YouTube centric AR videos, a lot of people skip that step of making sure that their builds are actually properly head-spaced, and that's a big safety concern.
Well, you got a mini bomb going off in the chamber.
What would that service cost at a gunsmith?
Depending upon what their volume is, it's not something that takes a long time to do. Literally, it's a gauge you can drop in. And then when you pull back on the charging handle to see if the bolt carrier seats, that's all it takes. You have a go gauge and a no-go gauge, and basically they're kind of like dummy rounds. And that's all it takes to see if something is not properly torqued to the right dimensions. Basically, you're trying to get that barrel seated on that upper receiver and make sure it's the correct distance. So that way, everything is flush.
So
but it doesn't take very
down
often.
On that casing, everything's flush, right? Everything meets up.
Correct. It lines up nice and flush. There's nothing that prevents that bolt carrier from seating properly.
So, how much is this build going to end up costing you?
Well, I received the lower from Michael, and when I bought the upper was actually, I'm sorry, I received the upper and the lower. The upper was stripped, and I got both of those from Michael. I bought the barrel from Classic Firearms. I got it while they had Bear Creek Arsenal barrels in stock, and I got it for $79. I bought the stock and bought it from Palmetto State Armory, and I think I paid between $100 and $125 for both of those combined. And now, like I said, basically all I have left to do is buy the gas tube and the gas block, and I think I can probably get that for under $50.
So your total cost is less than $500 on this.
Yeah, thereabouts. But then again, that's without optics. So I'll have to at some point, if I decide to go iron sights, I'll have to.
Well, and not only is it without optics, but it was also a lot of these parts were bought in the midst of the rush. You're finding a lot of these parts now are a lot cheaper. And
right, and then that's what
a lot of the manufacturers and a lot of the distributors actually have a backlog of AR-15s, just like pretty much every local gun store has a good backlog of 22. They're just hoarding it themselves. The manufacturers and the distributors have wads of AR-15 sitting in stock.
Well, I'm hoping that they have some good deals. I get advertisements from Midway USA and Brownells almost every other day telling me about how their prices are coming down for AR parts.
Yeah,
I find them to be kind of spendy, but it's good quality stuff, and they have fairly decent customer service, but they are kind of spendy.
If you like the commie type rifles, this ClassicFirearms.com, they have they've got a mini Draco AK-47 pistol for $449.99.
That's incredibly cheap, Dan.
That used to be $900 to $1,000 for that pistol.
They're still going for $700-800 on the used market right now.
Good grief!
Yeah,
but unfortunately, not legal to ship to California. Oh, boo-hoo!
Well, let's don't move to California then. And they've also got some Russian Sega 7.62 x 39s, which are that's a very nice firearm right there. Quality.
What are the price on those?
It doesn't have a price on here. Just seconds.
Oh, that's a telling feature when they don't have a price.
Just right on the homepage. $629 is what I'm seeing for the multi-position stock.
Is it a T6 type AR-15 looking stock?
That's what it says. Yep, T6 multi stock.
I'm sorry, those are horrible on
it looks tacky.
It does not. Yeah, it does not look like an AK should look like.
No.
I don't want to cast aspersions upon Tapco or anybody like that, but oh my Lord, what did they do to that? I mean, they put that on everything, on anything they could put it on there. And then, I don't know if anybody saw it, but Mossberg had a lever action rifle that had one of those. It had a quad rail and a T6 stock on it. Did you see it?
Well, you got to have room for flashlights and everything else that you need.
It did have a quad rail. I thought that was pretty nifty, but I think they called it their zombie lever action, and I think it was in 30-30 and 44 Magnum. And I thought, it's nice that another company's making a lever action rifle, but why did they have to ugly that up? I mean, it's really, really bad.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. So
this site is actually still selling that 5.45 by 39 Russian ammo.
Yeah, they got a big shipment in, and right before the State Department order went out to ban the importation. I mean, they had just received it. So
that's a case of 1080, 1080.
That's correct. That's correct.
What is their price?
I don't know. Let's see. They're not good. Again, it's one listed. It's not showing a price.
I got $239.99 for it, Michael.
Yeah, I've seen them at the gun show for $329, $350, and I've seen them in private sales for $250. And they don't seem to be moving.
Those spam cans, they come in 2 spam cans to a crate. And I used to pay $190 shipped to my door for 2 of those shipped to my door.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean this was the stuff that was banned Actually, it banned from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, all the things we like to play with.
Because it has steel bullet in it. They claim it's armor penetrating, correct?
And,
Correct.
and then somebody made a pistol out of the AK-74. Just like they make those mini Draco pistols, somebody made a Draco-style AK-74.
Well, there's still... Well, wait a minute. There's still 7.62 by 39 rounds. Are they not armor penetrating?
They're not armor penetrating.
They're not steel core.
They're lead with... Yeah, there's...
Yeah, I think that when you look at a lot of the 7.62...
It's lead copper.
Yeah. You got the lead core.
The only armor penetrating rounds available. I believe I've blinked out.
Yeah, you're there. We hear you.
Oh, okay.
What's the only available?
I believe that the only available armor piercing stuff is the military surplus 5.56. You know, I believe that's specifically exempted from the armor piercing ban, but pretty much anything that they've made into a pistol, they've banned as armor piercing because that's the cop killer legislation.
So just because someone made a pistol, that's ridiculous.
Right. And there's actually a company out there that's trying to make a pistol out of the 7.62 by 54 stuff. Like one of the Dragunov style rifles, he's going to cut that down into a pistol, which I don't see how that'd be even remotely controllable, but
Okay.
So that threatens the import of that stuff, and that's fairly cheap ammo as well. So, I mean, it's not only politicians who are, like, working against us. Sometimes the gun industry itself works against us. I mean, like, well, Smith & Wesson signed, basically caved in 1994, I personally wouldn't buy a brand new Smith & Wesson product. I like their old stuff.
Wow, that 25 cents a round is the going rate for that 5.45 stuff now. Wow, that's incredible.
Well, I was asking Dan earlier about what's your best method to go out and find ammo.
Yeah, you've got a great you're referring to gunbot.net now, Nick? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I being overseas, I can't walk into a big box store and check the availability. So what I've been doing is going online and trying to find what prices per round and all the different calibers that I shoot. And I've come across that Gunbot website, and they'll basically break it down for you, cost per round, and then tell you what type of ammo you can buy and who's got it in stock, and what the price is. So I thought that was pretty good. But we were talking earlier, it seemed like 13 cents a round is about the going rate for a 500 round box for a 22 long rifle.
Totally ridiculous. But that you're correct. 13 cents a round. Crazy. Should be 5 cents a round.
Yeah, 66 to 65 bucks for a 500 or 525 pound round brick, right?
That's correct. That's unbelievable. And if you got some really good stuff, some match target stuff, you're talking even higher dollar. And the Stingers now, Michael, your favorite 22, I noticed they're 50 cents a round.
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
That's nuts. That's just crazy. I've seen them for 25 bucks a box, and just no thanks.
What are they calling it? Defensive ammo.
What's the bucket of bullets going for at your big box?
When it sells at the big box, it's about 70 to 80 bucks for 1,400 rounds. And
that's great. Yeah, we got one of them. The price gougers is trying to sell that same thing for 200.
Oh yeah, it's nothing to see it at the show for 220 bucks. Yeah, that's common to see that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do they sell any of it?
You know, well, but but in their defense, it is golden bullet, man. You know, them bullets are made out of gold.
I was going to say, you could melt it down.
It's golden bullet. Yeah, so
That's crazy.
I think the best way to do it is just to, you know, buy your 3 when you go to the big box store. You know, if you've got your spouse with you or your friend with you, you know, everybody picks up 3. And try not to buy from the scalpers. And I mean, eventually they're going to be stuck sitting on wads of ammo. They can't move it any more than big box store prices.
I agree, Michael.
So,
that's what's going to happen sooner or later.
Well, Palmetto State Armory has a deal on CCI standard velocity 50 rounds 22 for $5.99 a box.
So 12 cents a round. That's not terribly bad. That's standard velocity is good target ammo. It's also good for
that's
shooting
1070 feet per second, and it's a lead bullet.
Yeah, subsonic.
Might as well have. Yeah, you might as well have Thunderbolt.
Yeah, that's about the cheapest that I'm seeing it, unless you're buying some Italian stuff.
I'm not too hot on any of the
standard is pretty clean.
On a lot of the imported 22.
This one that I'm looking at is the Fiocchi. Yeah, it's at 1250 feet per second, and says high velocity 528. So you're looking at like 11 cents a round.
Is it what type of bullet is it? Is it a plated bullet? Is it a lead bullet? Is it?
It says copper plated round nose.
It is, okay. Well, if it's copper plated round nose, I'm almost a little bit more inclined to take some of the imported stuff. I don't really like the imported, just an imported lead bullet. I find them to be a little bit dirty and I don't know.
Yeah, but don't you want a little bit of dirt in your barrel? I mean, at least for me, when I go hunting, I want a little bit of fouling in the barrel, because I know my rounds will be consistent. You know, I'm not saying like I want mud in the barrel, but I'm okay with the.
Well, I believe this is fouling that I'm not necessarily worried about it in the barrel, because that's an easy fix. But I'm talking about, this is like fouling that like gums up the action.
Oh, okay.
Like seriously heavy carbon and some of that stuff. And I mean, Dan shot that stuff. I know I've shot plenty of the imported 22 ammo. That's just like, man, that's like
nasty.
Detroit dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finally got to where I would only shoot CCI 22, and
I mean, and you pay a premium to shoot only CCI.
You didn't used to. I bought a bunch of it in quantity back then, Michael. It didn't used to be very expensive. It was just a little more expensive.
Well, you know, CCI only has a capacity of 4 million rounds a day, so in the room fire. So.
Well, I'm glad to see ammo's come back. You know, all the other calibers are back, so to speak. Pretty darn close to the price.
Yeah, there's plenty of night. Yeah, at about 10 to 15% above.
But that's not bad. We've seen worse.
Oh, absolutely.
I just got a text from my buddy Chris, reference to the bed out there. He says that he's going to have a muddy barrel after he outshoots me, because he's gonna put it somewhere doesn't get a lot of sunshine.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
but
you haven't had a chance to shoot much, correct, Nick?
I'll tell you, I have been able to shoot out here one time. I did pretty well, but I'm not really sweating Chris, because he's a tanker, and unless it's 120 millimeters that he's shooting, he's kind of suspect. He did miss a deer while he was home on leave, so I'm gonna throw that out there for him, because I know he's listening.
Okay, he missed. How long a distance though? That's the qualifier on that.
I'd hate to give a wrong distance, but I know it wasn't more than 100 yards.
Oh, surely not. He missed it 100 yards or less.
Well, I seem to think that he was giving the deer another chance. He was showing his benevolence, and he was basically saving him for me. That's what I think. And that's the story I'm going to stick with.
That's the best one to go with. Hey, earlier we were talking about the difference between the M1 Garand and the M1 carbine, and how one would be considered a personal defense weapon and one was a battle rifle. Well, you're in the military now, and you just brought up Chris being a tanker. As a tanker, would he carry an M4 with like the 14.5-inch barrel and all the stuff that everybody else carries, or would they have a different personal defense weapon selection?
Actually, he would be carrying his standard issue 9mm. He'd be getting the M9 Beretta.
No long rifle at all, didn't think?
He wouldn't have a whole lot of room for it. He may have been assigned one, but I know that he carried an M9.
So he didn't get any special folding stock rifle or anything like that?
No, all of the M4s that were issued are collapsible stock, 6-position collapsible stocks.
Yeah, I understand
so
that.
There would be no use to something like an MP5 or some other smaller like pistol caliber carbine that would be shrunk down.
No, we don't. Like I said, we get the straight up M4 issue. We won't have anything in our inventory like an MP5. That we don't carry those.
Okay, now would the Koreans have in their arsenal? The South Koreans, would they have a personal defense weapon, something to bridge the gap between a pistol and a rifle?
Based on what I've seen from the ROK soldiers, they're carrying their Daewoo battle rifles.
Okay.
So, and Chris just gave me a correction. He said that he did have M4s, and he said that of course tankers back in the day historically carried the grease guns, but we don't tend to carry those nowadays.
That is a cool firearm to shoot.
They probably don't cost enough to carry anymore.
Well, 45 caliber is, we got to be nice to them. We just can't, we can't kill them and put big holes in them. We need to kill them and put little holes in them.
Or wound them, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have to kill them in a
that was probably one of the first choices that our armed forces ever made. Probably was switching from the 45 to the 9mm. That's my opinion.
I would have to agree with you, and going with the Beretta. Also.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We needed bases in Italy.
Yeah, that was purely a political decision. That wasn't anything about the worthiness of the pistol.
So that got some bases in it. Cool.
Yeah, we've got quite a few military installations in Italy. We've got Aviano Air Base. We've got Vicenza, which is home of one of our airborne brigades. We also have stuff down in Naples with the Navy. We've got stuff in the Pisa area with the Army. We use those places as jump-offs to go into North Africa and other places in Southern Europe. The Balkans, and that was at a period of time where the U.S. was kind of vulnerable.
I guess the Middle East is
they made, I think, a short-sighted decision, and then they tried. Yeah, of course, and they basically came out with spokesmen who said, well, due to the increasing numbers of women in our armed forces, we needed to come up with a pistol cartridge that was not overpowering for them and would allow them to, be accurate and fire a lethal round. Well, I don't know. I think that, somebody who gets and becomes familiar with the weapon can handle a 45 or a 9mm either way. I don't think there's that much difference.
Didn't a standardization have to occur with NATO as well?
Well, it did, and basically a lot of the NATO nations went and basically obtained the rights to either have Beretta make their 9mm, or they did site license and build their own indigenous 9mm. But the 9mm cartridge exactly was drawn up under the standardization agreements, and that's what became the standard small arms for the NATO forces.
And that extends all the way into like the magazines for the AR-15s, right? Those are NATO standard magazines. Every NATO country that issues a rifle in 5.56 will be able to take those magazines. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, because a lot of the younger NATO nations had contracts with Israel for the Galils. Estonia was one of them, and those Galils did not use the AR series magazines that I saw.
Bad move, Estonia.
They're good folks out there.
Speaking
Yeah,
of
they
good
picked the wrong
folks,
rifle.
I'd like to talk about the good guy. The good guy
Good
gun
guy.
story of the week. And,
There we go.
and it happens to be a neighbor this time around. What happened, this happened somewhere in Pennsylvania. There was a 60-year-old man. He was assaulted by a 27-year-old thug, and he took his jewelry and his car keys, and he left the area. Well, this man, 60-year-old man, decided to wait around because he took his car keys. He washed his car. Sure enough, at 1:54 a.m., the guy returns with a friend, and they start assaulting the man again. And a neighbor comes out and tells them to quit, and they don't stop. They keep beating on the man. So the neighbor fires one shot and kills one of them, and the other one quickly jumps in the car and drives him to the hospital. A little late though, but and there's a case where the neighbor was the good guy, and he had a perfectly legitimate excuse to shoot and kill that man. Whenever someone's in imminent threat of danger, you can use your firearm to protect someone else.
Well, doesn't that depend on the jurisdiction, Dan? Because I think in places like New York State, you're not allowed to defend other than your individual person.
Well, I guess you're probably right. It probably matters where you're at, jurisdiction, state. But surely most of the states would have that where you could defend
Any
someone
state
else.
that has a castle doctrine usually has the defense of others clause in their
Right.
castle doctrine.
And I think Pennsylvania is they've got some folks in Harrisburg that are constantly going back and forth about what gun laws the Keystone State is supposed to enact. But I got no sympathy for a criminal who's already breaking the law and then loses his life in the commission of a crime of his own choosing.
You know,
So good-
I did
good
see
on
a
that
story the other day, and I don't have a link to it, and I'm really sorry, but it just blew my mind. It was a guy had robbed two guys had robbed a Waffle House somewhere, and well, there was an armed guy in the Waffle House, and I guess the guy, as soon as the guy started pistol whipping somebody, he pulled out his pistol and shot one of the guys and killed him, and the other guy took off and fled, and they caught him, and blah blah blah, all that noise. But the sister of the guy who got shot came out in favor of gun control, and there was quite a bit of attention paid to her about this, and I just kind of found it funny that she was screaming about gun control, and if guns had been illegal, her brother would have been alive, and all this. But her brother was in the process of pistol whipping somebody, which does not fit the 4 rules of gun safety.
Exactly, Michael. The first one being always treat a firearm as if it's loaded. Visually inspect it, pull the magazine out, open the cylinder, look in the chamber, make sure that firearm is not loaded. And the second one is be aware of that muzzle.
Before you,
what, Michael?
before you pistol whip somebody, make sure that pistol's unloaded.
But anyway, the second one is muzzle direction. Always be aware of where that firearm is pointed. You want to keep it pointed in a safe direction at all times. The third one is know your target, what's around it, and what's behind it, because you're not going to hit it every time. And what's that fourth one, Michael?
Dan, it's the most important one. And ladies and gentlemen, please keep your booger hook off the bang switch. There's no accidental discharges. As we've seen twice this week, there were negligent discharges. That can't happen if your finger is not on the trigger. Keep your finger outside the trigger guard. Dan, it's happening more and more, and I'm telling you, I see it all the time. People pick up a weapon and their finger goes right to the trigger, and it's starting to scare me. So
we had a customer in the gun shop, and he was standing there with his hand in his pocket. I guess he was fiddle faddling with the booger hook there, and all of a sudden, kaboom! And a bullet went through the case, one of the gun cases. And Steve, the guy working at the gun shop at the time, got really mad at him and just about whipped him and ran him out of there. Unfortunately, he didn't even get his name so he could pay for the case he had just destroyed. But I just can't see it. Can you imagine having a loaded firearm in your pocket and fiddling around with it?
I can't understand that before he was even able to handle a firearm that he didn't turn over some kind of ID.
No, apparently he walked in with it. He already had it in his pocket.
That was his.
Yeah, it was his own personal firearm. That's correct.
Oh,
no, wow, none of them are loaded in the shop.
I was going to say, what a
well, usually you walk into a gun store and there's a sign on the wall that says, please leave your weapon holstered, or if you're going to bring it out, make sure it's unloaded.
How do you make sure it's not unloaded if you don't pull the trigger?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's funny. A guy tried to hold up a gun store one time, and there was a lot of different customers in there. Well, he didn't live too long when he stuck the gun in the owner's face. He got hit by about 8 different caliber rounds, believe it or not.
Well, that's why marksmanship is important.
I mean,
a lot of people in the store, they took their own action against this guy, but that's a heck of a place to pick to try to rob, isn't it? At gunpoint,
well,
is it gun for?
That's a good way to apply for a job as a colander.
I thought it was funny that they found 8 different caliber rounds in the guy.
I guess that does correct my earlier statement of you can't be more dead than dead. Well, that one would be more dead, I guess. Hey, Dan, but Michael, before we get ready to get out of here, I want to give a big thanks to my buddy Chris. He's a real stand-up guy, a true combat veteran, not one of these fake Nancys who's out there running around saying that they earned a combat action badge for a mortar attack in Baghdad in 2010. This guy was knee deep in the thickest stuff, and he is a true American hero. And I can say that I'm glad I know him. So
well, thank you for your service, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
And thank you also, Nick. Can't wait for you to get home.
Oh, like I said, I want to be on the plane, and the first thing I'm going to do is grab a stewardess, probably inappropriately, and ask her where the alcohol is.
So
I'm glad you're coming home, man.
Yeah, there is alcohol, but like I said, we've got curfews and we got alcohol prohibitions, and I just want to sleep between Seoul and Seattle, and a 6-pack of beer is probably the quickest way to help me do it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's great. I'm tickled to death for you. I hope you don't ever have to go back overseas again.
Hey, I hope so too. I'm at the tail end of the career, and if they send me over here, something's wrong. As broke as I am.
So you're close to getting your years in, Nick? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm at 19 years and counting down. I've got one more assignment, and it's going to be nice because I'll be in the States for the first time in 9 years.
That's awesome.
Well, I think you'll have some. You'll have a different view of things than when you left. Things are a bit different now.
Now the MTV generation's taking over, I guess, right?
I've got people who are joining the Army, and they're out here now, and God, they were born in 90-something.
Isn't that wild? Time flies, guys. We are out of time. I'd like to thank Jules for providing us with the network and the venue and all that. Thank you for coming on with us, Nick. You be safe over there last week. And Michael, I'll give you the last word there.
Dan, thanks a lot. Nikki, coming home, and thanks for coming on tonight. Can't wait to see you when you get back. Thank you very much, everybody. Rubber 6 Live after dark. Coming up.